Hello, everyone. I'm just gonna get started. So, greetings, friends. I wrote a little something in preparation of us gathering here today, and it's just a little statement about my process as an artist. It's called The Ritual of Creation: Life and Art as a Ritual Act. When I first had to write my first professional artist resume, it was wild. I had gone to Evergreen in the 90s and I didn't learn anything about writing a resume. That combined with the fact that I gave birth a week after I graduated college, my experience was only thesis study shows and a few private sales, some underground showings, and live birth, which I listed as the greatest act of creation, as it should be, because a human, it's the self-evolving sculpture. So now that my daughter's an adult, I stand by the fact that I treated parenting like it was my art to do so, like an 18-year evolving performance installation piece. And that'll evolve beyond my efforts and intentions. So to more memorialize that, I used my senior thesis to make her a keepsake book that I kept for her for 18 years, and she didn't know. And I presented that to her on her 18th birthday, along with this 71-page book called Unsolicited Advice. So I'm going to read you a little bit of that. Unsolicited Advice, a book of wisdoms for my child. Love, Mom. I have a bunch of pictures in here. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. Use the power of numbers to your advantage. Affect change by being able to delegate and also insert your skills where needed. Mom. As you travel through life, your dreams will guide you. Determination will get you there. And love. Love will provide the greatest scenery of all. Michelle C. Uczyszewski. Live life holistically. Mom. The direction in which education starts a man determines his future. Plato. The direction in which education starts a woman's future helps her to determine her own. Mom. So that's a little taste of what I have been doing, but the ritual act of art, it's bringing that same fervor to all of life, not like in the life as art sort of way, but something so much deeper than that. It's sort of akin to crossing the threshold of what is imagined versus what is real, and how that approach to ritualizing creation can affect this general force of everything that is life, and maybe even push the evolution of art itself, because creation in itself is a ritual act. So having this perspective as an underlying current for all of my professional career as an artist, it led me to freely explore ideas in a way that I didn't really draw me to one singular medium. So instead, knowing that for myself as an artist, like no object or moment in time could ever compete with the value of a human life, which I've already created, I'm kind of freed from the pressure and the emotional valuation and the feelings of preciousness towards the value of my own work. But even though I have to make money still, and I'm battling with artist commodification and object as craft on this conceptual level, I've been able to approach my work and ideas in this sort of like fluid evolution that's like driving this singular idea of like ritual as a means of communication, as a means of production, and as a means of interacting with the world. So repetition, expansion, evolution, the process, these are all very important concepts in my work. But depending on the era, some may know me as I don't know, a musician, a performer, a thespian, a director, a sculptor, a jeweler, a seamstress, a fashion designer, a poet, an animator, an illustrator, an installation artist, a muralist, performance artist, activist, writer, painter. I don't know. I'm an artist, and I'm also someone who plays music. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my visual process. Before I begin, is I like to set a mood with my music, a vibration of music that's creative and repetitive in nature and somewhat entrancing. So I'd like to welcome you into that process now. Go ahead and free your mind and let your imagination wander. Let's begin. All right, so while that's going, I am going to take you all on a little tour of my studio. This is where I make my music and my art and all sorts of things for the community. There we are. So this is where I just made all of the music we're hearing. I play with a couple of SP404 samplers, keyboard, and many objects, usually drums and bells. Let's go. So over the years, I have done many forms of art. This is a piece from 2015. It's from an installation I did about a Buddha called Jizo. He is the patron Buddha of unborn children, and they believe that when a child dies before it's born, it's bad luck for the parents, and so parents can make offerings if they've had abortions, miscarriages, just anything where they lost their child, sometimes small children or stillbirths. And they make offerings to this Jizo to go down to the underworld and rescue the children. So we give him toys and rocks because in their mythology, unborn children would stack rocks on like essentially something like a river Styx. So this was from an installation where I hung ice that was dyed and it printed some prints. I pulled this out just while I was cleaning my studio. I found it. This is a piece from 1998 at Evergreen. So I never actually took painting at Evergreen. I just kind of was self-taught as a painter, but it's kind of interesting to see like older work in that way. I started as a sculptor really, so I work a lot with like found objects and clay. I'm very interested in repetition and the process of it all. So I do a lot of collecting. My studio is above the painted plate in the Capitol Theater building, and this is a collection of the free wall, which after the summertime, when people come and paint often, it gets so heavy that pieces flake off, and I go down there and I pick them up and collect them. They're kind of interesting. You can almost see like how thick and layered they are. And then I also make folded books. I just don't like throwing anything away, so my process is really about like reusing anything that could possibly go into the trash. So sometimes I go and I find like old paintings that are being discarded and frames, and I try and you know, salvage those as much as possible, like from secondhand or off the street, free box, wherever. When I'm driving, I'll pull over, which has been interesting. And that's something we could talk about, is how that's going to shift with this whole COVID-19 thing. I wonder, like, donating, putting, you know, someone in our neighborhood put a mandala of size 7 shoes out, which I thought was kind of interesting. So yeah, this is kind of how my studio works. So you would enter in here. I got a little bit of space, and store all my paintings when I'm not showing them. I also make clothes and accessories. So this is a handbag that I made a few years ago as a series, just kind of more like a soft sculpture. I like how it looks sort of like a happy face. Here's some of the work that I kind of think people started first paying attention to, which is the paper cut work. So this is 2 full sheets of illustrations, or actually this one, 3 full sheets of illustrations that are cut apart and layered in 3 dimensions. There's Yoko Ono. I think most of us like Yoko. So I really like playing with this idea that, you know, like taking away sort of everything we're dressed as, sort of all of like how we're prescribed to be received, and then adding color and pattern just sort of as like a means of like working to capture energy more than necessarily the like true to life attributes that we're just seeing, like not the surface. I want to like try and capture what's on the inside, which brings me to this project that I did a couple of years ago, called Pressed Against the Mirror, where I did 256 illustrations on my phone. And I did this because I didn't have to worry, again, like I kind of mentioned it earlier, I didn't have to worry about, like, am I wasting paper or paint or ink? Like, I could just draw freely, like 6 hours a day, and just hit save on my phone. And it really expanded kind of what I was able to do with like what I'm willing to accept from myself. You know, I was able to like put forth things that normally I would have thought were like either gaudy or unfinished or just, I don't know, like it gave me a range. You know, you can see right here's a good example. It's like, here we have a few different images, and some are like really put together and others aren't. And I feel like that's truer to life in a way than what we normally see. But I'm also very interested in expanded consciousness, meditation, freeing and expanding the mind. This is a series that I did that kind of involves that. It was based on some of the original drawings from an animation I made called Teropia, which is available on my website to watch for free. That was a collaborative project. I had first translated some of this illustrative work into paint in a mural that I helped participate in executing on the east side of Olympia for the Love Our Local Fest. And that was based on imagery from this area, the Salish Sea. And then it was painted, I made like big coloring sheets. There's a documentary of it also on my website. But then we had people come and just apply color and pattern and paint. And so this is actually not, these are painted with acrylic inks. And usually I color with marker, but these ones are, you can almost see a little bit of like how the texture is a little bit more full in places. But Interruptosaurus, that music over there. yeah, so then that kind of all evolved into, maybe I don't need the portraits. Maybe it's just as interesting to capture energy with color and pattern alone and allow it to be a little bit more abstract. And so in the last couple of years, what I've really been working on are these abstract paintings. I try to stay as far away as I can from like anything representational. It's challenging once you've done a lot of like figurative stuff and, you know, you're animating, you're trying to make storytelling happen. It's interesting to try and stay away. I mean, I actually paint everything in my studio. This is just my shelf, but I can't help myself. That's where I keep my paint. I just got to paint stuff and painted the chair. So I thought what would be interesting now is maybe if we want to just like have a discussion about ritual acts in general. I'm going to shut off the music, and I thought I'd just take a seat over here and actually work on a piece while we talk. Hi all, hi friends. I'm just going to set this up so you can kind of see me, and I will be right back. All right, just a moment of your time. So if other people would like to turn their microphones on, I somehow lost myself, so I hope you all can see me. But yeah, I'm just going to work on a couple pieces. I've been working on this one as of late. So what I work with a lot, because I really love them, are solid paint markers. I don't know if this is anything anyone's ever used before. You kind of have to warm them up a little bit. Here, I'm going to show you one more thing in my studio. I don't normally work at a table. I don't want to be on the floor with this virus going around as much, but I normally paint all of my work here on the surface I am sitting on. So the way to get these started is you kind of just have to really start getting them warmed up. But then, as you can see, you kind of get this almost like oil pastel kind of vibe going on. So that's what I'm going to be working with. So does anyone have any comments about their own ritualization inside of their work, or has anyone thought of that before? I'm opening up the table to discussion. Yes, hello.
I'm finding this totally delightful.
Oh, thank you.
It's just so refreshing to hear and see. I love your process. I love the direction of these new totally abstract pieces, capturing the energy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, this idea that it kind of, it's funny because I actually, Stephanie, who's in the room with us, I had to submit an artist statement that this is going to kind of reference at a point, but it sort of started, you know, we do so much online, and this seems relevant right now with all of us having to have this talk online, because it's our choice to be here, but also we could be doing this all together if it were a different circumstance. But I was seeing how we have these sort of doppelganger personalities, you know, like I might be one way in this meeting, but maybe I'm a different person on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. You know, there's all these different modes, and people kind of can be a different version of themselves less publicly. And so I started thinking how interesting that is, because when we interact with people in the physical realm, we get an idea of their vibes. You know, we might turn down another street from someone because it just gives us like a weird vibe. You know, now everyone's crossing the street, stay away from each other. But, you know, before it's our own inner judgments, even if we think we're pretty open people. But it's also like this deeper, like base survival, you know, mechanism that keeps us safe, like the fight or flight thing. So, but with the internet, I was finding that some people that I maybe would have moved away from in like in the real world, their internet presence was maybe someone that I like love. And I'm like, wow, this person and I have so much in common. I would have maybe never talked to them. And then the other way as well, you know, maybe some people that I would chat with at the coffee shop or whatever, it's like you start seeing how they are in like a freer way, and they might not be so safe or friendly anymore. And so I wanted to see how could we capture that on like a two-dimensional level, right? This idea of like good vibes, bad vibes, not to be so dualistic, but you know, that whole gradient of what that is. And you know, it's been really interesting as that's evolved, because I really, the other side with that paper cut work was building it into these mandalas, because I really, another part of my work is really wanting to stun people into having a moment where they can just be in a meditative place. You know, they can observe the work. You could be listening to me talk, but maybe your mind is also going somewhere and you're getting inspired with your own ideas. Or maybe it just stops all the chatter for a second. You know, you're not like reading all the news or scrolling through everything necessarily. It just gives us a moment to step back. And so I found that, you know, this evolution with the paintings, trying to go to a more abstract place, was what I was trying to do with the portraits in the mandalas, was to create an abstraction. Did you want to chime in, Stephanie?
I get that. Yep. It's the repetition. So by creating the faces over and over again, you take away the physicalness of them and they become a pattern. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, exactly. Like they become part of the pattern themselves. But with the mandalas, I really felt like I was taking like lots of different people and forming them into a community, because I was trying to echo what we do in society a little bit, of like forming these webs and communities. Lynette, you're on mute. Chime in.
Hi. So I think it was a really smart move going abstract for you, because your work is all embracing and it doesn't edit. And I feel with your abstract, it allows me to be involved, my own presence to be involved in your work, where I don't feel that with your mandalas. I feel there's almost too much going on and they're having this party, you know, I don't feel like I belong there. But I think with your abstract work, it's more inclusive, because anyone can kind of join in with their own experiences and their own, you know, whatever comes to their mind is more accessible, I think. That was I
appreciate that. You know, it's interesting. I never have had anyone put it that way, of like, these people are all at a party and I don't feel like I'm invited to that party. Which I think maybe some people look at it and go, oh, that's a party I want to go to, or, oh, that looks like a party I've been at, or I understand it. But that's a really, that's so helpful for me. Thank you. That's truly, like, to think of it in that way. I think that's why I was called more to the abstraction from the people, had to do with, well, for me, when I first wanted to move away from portraiture, it's that I wanted this universality that you're talking about, but not just for people, place, and thing. You know, there's so much more. There's like a space that's not a rock, and not, you know, there's that flake of the paint wall. There's this different stuff, and some of it isn't even like a tangible representational form. You know, artists and illustrators, we try and like get the essence of like that wadded up piece of trash, or, you know, I love that, like to do like a photorealist representation of something so mundane is beautiful to me as well. But I want to try and do something more like take all of that sacrality, all of the sacred, and just like throw it into something completely mundane and see if it sticks, you know? And probably everyone who makes art can relate to this. It's like you sometimes make a piece and you don't feel like it worked, or it's not your favorite one, or it didn't really accomplish what you were going for. But then other people might love that piece, and that might be the one that really worked for someone else. So the process aspect of what I'm doing, I find really helpful. Another thing I want to throw out there, just because I always like to just like share so that people can be inspired and like helped in their own process too. But I always have had like a side process that I do in my studio. You know, I kind of showed those little clay heads. Those were made while I was working on a show in Los Angeles where I was building a bunch of art for an exhibit there. But I needed like a side thing to do to get out of my mind with the illustrations and the cutting and the layering and collaging. So ironically, the paintings were one of my side things. I had been working on this one triptych for years that it just was like a table almost. Like I just painted on it to get out of the monotony of like tiny drawings. And then I had I lost a bunch of friends in the ghost ship fire. And then since then, lots of people have passed. And the paintings I found were really cathartic for working through that process of loss, because I'm like pouring paint and I'm spreading things around and I'm covering up stuff, you know, like I already had stuff on here, but it's disappearing over time. There's all this sort of like hidden love and layers and loss, really, because there's entire paintings that are lost to the viewer. And so the paintings just like, they kind of blew up, I mean, in the most natural way, right? Like we make art, sometimes we just can't help ourselves. We're just so into either the concept of what we're doing, the tactility of it, the way it makes us feel inside, you know, it's so beautiful. And so that kind of took off, but then it became really interesting about, for me, they weren't really about death and loss, even though they were. And so when I began presenting them, I wanted to have that story be part of it, but I think that they've really evolved past that. And that's when I started really framing things in. You can see I frame things, and then this one's not quite finished, but this will get more layers of paint on the frame, and it will end up having maybe stripes or who knows what. I've been working on trying to spread some stuff out of the frame. I've been getting some good feedback on that, of letting the paintings kind of expand out a little. So where this one's at right now, you know, I just worked on it. I just added 2 more colors, this purple and this reddish color. These black splotches will get white stripes, and then I will pour more paint on it and take brushes and palettes, and I will work more layers. And when that dries, I'll go back with some of these, and sometimes I go back with the fine brush and do the details by hand. And then I just will keep doing that until I feel like it's done, or until I'm sick of working on it or looking at it. And so I work on more than one piece at once. So, you know, that one I've done a little bit on, so I'll move on to this. I kind of have enough of this color in there, and I just kind of start, I don't know, I just try not to think about it. I just start messing with it, messing it up, trying to make things go together a little better, get it in the surface, and then I just go from there, and I just see where it sort of takes me. Again, I have to, you gotta kind of warm things up sometimes. But yeah, that's me. That's my process. This is how I make my work, and yeah, it's for me, the ritual aspect is really about, it's interesting to try and make something while I'm talking to you for this reason, because usually I, you know, create this big sound. I block out the world and I just do it, you know, like as long as I've been working on the 2 pieces I'm holding, that's like nothing. Like I would get up here and in 2 seconds, the next one, like, and I'd have 10 laid out on the floor, and I'd be pouring paints, and I'd already have to take this dress off. I have like a tank top under here. I'd already have to be taking layers off so that I could be getting messier and dirtier. And then I'd remember like, oh, right, I don't want the bottom of my shoes to get paint. So I'd have to like throw those across the room. And, you know, that's the real of it. but I love seeing you all here. It's so wonderful to have this opportunity, Nicole. Thank you for doing this through SPSCC. It's just been a wonderful experience to know that our creative community can come together in this way and share what we do, because we have a vibrant community, and we have, you know, being a person who plays music and tours and travels, it'll be, thank you, Susan. It's really interesting how many of us there are outside of what we know in our community. Like, we are ripples, we are concentric ripples. We're like, Olympia, the creativity that we have here, it's sort of like throwing a pebble in a pond, and it like ripples out, and there's people who, the artists here and the musicians here are touching, who are other places, but there's also the artists and musicians here who leave and go other places, and they're touching other people in that way. And so you know, that's part of it too, with just trying to build these webs of vibration, is to try and hone that into something, you know, bring all of the greater community back together in some larger way where we can be building the world we want to see. So that's my PSA, and love y'all.
Going off out of the painting plane there, taking it into the frame and so on, intrigues me, and particularly that you've got a piece behind you on the wall.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? I'd like to see that up closer.
Which piece is it?
It's the one that's irregularly shaped and not framed.
Oh, this thing up here, I'm kind of pointing at it?
Yes. What is that?
So these are, so the fashion aspect, I don't always have time to sew. It's very time consuming. But I have these heads that I wanted to paint. I sometimes paint objects. I could show you one over here, actually. You can kind of see in that corner, there's like a bust that I painted.
Yeah.
So I collect objects to paint, but I had these heads, and these are masks that I want to make. But given that I haven't had, I mean, now I have time, but I've been sewing a completely different kind of mask than this. But this is work that I've kind of put together in lieu of, again, since the paintings have become more of a main project, I had to have a side project. So it's been putting together these masks.
That thing, oh my gosh.
That I would like to be able to make and, you know, have them be like actually something someone could wear and see out of. And then sometimes, you know, I find paintings and I'm like, oh, I'll paint over that painting. But then I'm like, oh, but it's so, just so, you know, like I just like this painting. It's just kind of nice and feels inspiring. And then sometimes even something like this, I'm just like, oh, it's nice. Someone did a really good job with the oils. It's probably like a photocopy of an oil, but that someone put in a frame. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's nice. And I like to try and be inspired by things that aren't just my work, you know, because another thing is when you're in your studio, you get kind of inspired by yourself, right? Like here's these totems, but in a way, these totems are very much the masks, you know, they're very much these masks, kind of coming more into the 3D realm. But that's what those are. Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff going on in the comments, China. Kelsey asks, can you talk for a minute about how you did your 3D paintings with the 3D glasses? I think maybe like the ones that were at Lynette's gallery.
Yes, she's talking about these glasses here, and I don't think it will work through a camera, but who knows? Where's even a camera on this side up here? Yeah, so there's these glasses, and you can look through them, and they you can't really see it on camera, I don't think, but they do sort of a way of color separating. So like with these paintings here, okay, so Kelsey, how I did that, I'm going to turn it back to myself just so I can sit and talk about it for a minute and not be so shaky and moving around. So these glasses separate color. Like I'm looking at the screen now, and what it looks like is sort of like a glow around my skin of like green and pink, almost like if I were drawn in a traditional 3D. So if you look at some things, it just kind of makes it separate out, like so that it looks like traditional 3D will have like a just offset red and green of the same image, and so, or red and blue, and you're blocking what traditional 3D glasses do when they have like the red and the blue is they're cutting out all the blue that would be from the right, whatever's right or left side of the picture, and then all the red from the other side, and then the picture corresponds to that so that they meld together to make a singular image, because that's just like how the eyes form to a point, like with perspective. What these glasses do is they separate color. So how I was able to do those paintings is a little bit by chance, to be honest, because when I was doing the illustrative paper cut and mandala work and building those, I did a show for a comic book show in Seattle, and I didn't really feel like a comic artist, but my illustrations kind of flow in that realm, and people were seeing them as kind of like this bigger, yes, short run also was a time that I did something like this, but this was actually even before then. I made a whole series of the illustrations while wearing these glasses. So I did the illustrations, and then when I went to apply the color, I wore the glasses to ensure that what I was making was gonna be 3D. And so then I put together all of those images, and then I knew that they would work, so I cut them apart and collaged them and built all the work for that show. And then I also have done like a bunch of string installation stuff. So that show also had a big string installation and strings attached to the walls with the glasses. So you can kind of get tangled with other people as you walked around and have to also be in your own web and have conversations. But then, so then I was working on the paintings that were in that most recent show that's shown a few places. Lynette has a wonderful gallery space, All Sorts, that is, I highly recommend going to the few shows a year that happen there. It's unbelievable how much she's able to accomplish with a pop-up gallery, and it's really, really a nice event. But the show that the work that I showed there, which had these 3D glasses, they just remodeled in my building. So actually this last month, I haven't been here that much, but I usually hang my paintings when I'm not showing them out in the hallway, and as I make them to get them out of the studio. And when I was doing that, I'm always shifting and cleaning my studio. I have to have room and mania and stuff. But I found these glasses and I showed them to someone else in the building, and I was like, oh, hey, you should check out these glasses. They're really cool. And then they were like, oh my gosh, all your paintings are like 3D. Like, I didn't know you were working on this. And I didn't know I was working on that either. So I think something happened when I did the series where I wore them that later affected just my color choices or how I'm putting things together. So yeah, but if it's something that's interesting to you, I recommend getting the glasses, and don't try and draw your like lines with it. Like if you're doing pencil or ink, like anything that's black and white, it's gonna just like make it seem crazy to you. But if you want to figure it out, you can like learn to apply color, or you can like research more into it. After I realized it worked with the paintings, I went and read on the internet a little bit about, yes, it would be wonderful in letterpressing. Yes, that would be so cool. Absolutely. And actually we should talk about that some other time, Kelsey, because we could get together. I could talk about maybe there's a way to do, because there's a lot of way to do 3D printing with traditional 3D glasses as well. But I read a little bit about how to make the color separation work, and then I tried to apply it, and those paintings didn't work. So I don't really know, to be honest. Like some work and some don't. And even in that show, some people commented like, oh, some of these don't work very well. And I was like, well, all right, they aren't even for the glasses. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to have the glasses with it, but the other thing is I'm trying to have them custom made because I would like to be able to provide people who buy paintings with the glasses. But unfortunately, even before this whole COVID thing, the company that makes them is a little hard to get in touch with to put orders in. They're like in a factory in the deep valley of Los Angeles. But definitely look into it. They're super fun. If you find a resource where I can order a bunch, let me know.
I hope you're reading the comments because you're getting lots of compliments.
Thank you. I want to say a little quick something, which is just, I really like putting blessings out there, and I just want to put a lot of blessings out to our community, that everyone stay well and enjoy and creative and feeling like this time is maybe a precious opportunity for monastic living, because as we shift back eventually to going back to normal, I hope we shift into a more evolved and new normal that really highlights the best of what we're all finding in ourselves and each other at this time. And yeah, so blessings for wellness, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. This will be available on YouTube soon. I'm editing as quickly as I can, not a professional. Thank you again for coming. Let's hear it for China.
Love you guys. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, China.
Thank you so much.